You ever get that feeling that something was just meant to happen? Like the timing was so perfect, so crazy, it felt more like a movie scene than real life? Yeah, same here. But what if I told you that it's not just your imagination? That Carl Jung, the Carl Jung, one of the biggest names in psychology, actually believed the universe is always talking to you through signs, symbols, and random encounters that, well, aren't really random at all. Because guess what? Nothing is just a coincidence. And today, you're gonna see why these so-called spiritual coincidences are actually little messages from the invisible world. If you've been seeing repeating numbers, running into people who say exactly what you needed to hear, or watching things line up in ways that don't even make sense, this video is for you. Carl Jung figured out the secret behind coincidences way before spirituality became cool. And what he found might totally change how you look at your life and your journey. So buckle up, because by the time you're done with this video, your mind's gonna be blown, your heart a little lighter, and who knows, maybe you'll realize this popped up exactly when you needed it most. Ever felt like the universe was silently working behind the scenes, lining up moments, people, or messages that just happened to show up at the perfect time? Yeah, Carl Jung had a name for that. Synchronicity. Sounds like something out of a movie, right? But for Jung, it was way deeper than that. He didn't see these spiritual coincidences as just random stuff that happens. Nope, he saw them as signs, messages, the unconscious mind leaking into the real world. While most scientists back then were chasing logic and predictability, Jung was out there breaking the mold, saying it loud and clear: nothing happens by chance. Imagine that. While his peers were drawing charts and crunching numbers, he was decoding the mystery of coincidences like it was some sacred language of the universe. At a time when science was just starting to explore how powerful the mind really is, Jung was already pointing to something huge. An invisible bridge between what we feel inside and what we experience out there. He believed our emotions, thoughts, and even our fears could manifest in the physical world through what he called synchronicities. And here's the thing, he didn't just brush them off with a, "Wow, what a coincidence, I was thinking of someone and they called." Nah, he asked, why now? What's the meaning behind this moment? That one question? It changed everything. Because from there, Jung opened a door most people were too scared to even knock on. The idea that maybe, just maybe, the universe is answering us, even when we haven't asked a thing. And the wildest part, Jung wasn't some mystic lost in woo-woo land. He was a scientist, a respected psychiatrist. He dove into the unknown not out of fantasy, but because he knew the human soul couldn't be explained by numbers and logic alone. The idea of synchronicity came straight from real moments with real people, like the famous story of the golden beetle. A patient of his was describing a dream about that exact insect, and right then, a golden beetle tapped on the window. Coincidence? Not for Jung. For him, that was the universe showing its hand. And if you think that's mind-blowing, wait until you see what these spiritual coincidences might mean in your life. How many times has something happened in your life and you thought, wow, what a crazy coincidence? Well, according to Carl Jung, that might not have been just a coincidence at all. It could have been the universe sending you a message in disguise. He believed these so-called spiritual coincidences are actually events full of meaning. Like there's some hidden intelligence quietly pulling the strings behind the scenes of existence. You know, those random run-ins with someone you haven't seen in years, right when you needed to hear something specific? Yeah, that's not random. That, for Jung, was a classic example of the mystery of coincidences acting as a mirror for your subconscious. And the craziest part, you might never notice if you're spiritually asleep. One of the wildest synchronicities happened to Jung himself. He was in a session with a super logical, emotionally blocked patient. She was telling him about a dream she had, of a golden beetle. And right then, out of nowhere, a beetle of that exact kind tapped on the window. It was so perfectly timed, so symbolic, that it cracked something open in her. She finally let go, finally allowed healing in. Coincidence? Not a chance. That was a subtle energy breaking through the rigid logic of the mind, and moments like that shouldn't be ignored. They're clues about who you are, where you're at, and where your soul is trying to take you. Thing is, most of us only get it later, when the pieces finally click. But what if you started noticing it now? So if lately you've been seeing the same patterns repeat, numbers, names, symbols, strange coincidences, maybe it's time to ask, what is this trying to show me? Jung believed these synchronicities pop up when your unconscious is trying to get your attention, like it's whispering, "Hey, wake up, I'm trying to guide you." The truth is, these messages show up way more often than we realize. The real challenge? Stop brushing them off as just coincidence, and start reading them like a subtle map, drawn by forces we don't always fully understand. And the best part, there are ways to tell when it's real synchronicity. And that's exactly what you're about to discover. Spotting a true synchronicity is like tuning in your spiritual antenna to pick up signals most people miss. Carl Jung used to say that when a coincidence hits you deep, makes your heart skip, or stirs something inside, it's probably packed with meaning. That alone is already a sign. So if something moved you, gave you chills, or triggered a strong gut feeling, it might not be just random. Here's a real-life example. You've been seriously thinking about changing careers, and out of the blue, someone offers you exactly the kind of opportunity you were looking for. That's not just timing. That smells like a spiritual message. The key is staying aware, being present, and not letting those subtle signs slip by because you were too logical or too distracted to notice. But how do you tell the difference between an ordinary event and one of these meaningful spiritual coincidences that Jung was so obsessed with? Here's a simple filter: emotional impact plus symbolic context. If something gives you that inner spark, feels way too on point to ignore, and connects directly to something you're going through, it's time to pay attention. Let's say you dream of a butterfly, and the next day, one literally lands on your shoulder while you're thinking about starting over. That's not just a cute nature moment. That's the invisible world trying to speak your language. Start writing these moments down in a journal. No need to get mystical about it. Just be attentive. That habit alone can seriously boost your energetic awareness. Another huge factor: your energy. People who vibe higher, gratitude, presence, alignment with their values, tend to spot more synchronicities. Why? Because they're more in tune with the universe's flow. Quantum physics even hints that our reality responds to conscious observation. So being awake is already halfway there. Here's a little practice you can try. Before bed, ask the universe, what do I need to see that I'm not seeing yet? Write it down. Meditate for 5 minutes. Then, just observe the next day. The answer might show up in a book, a song, or a random stranger's words. And when it does, you'll realize once again, nothing is by chance. But here's the real question: what are these synchronicities trying to show you? Synchronicities don't show up just to impress you. They come as hidden invitations, nudges from the universe calling you to wake up, grow, and realign with your true path. Carl Jung believed these spiritual coincidences act as bridges between what's buried in your unconscious and what's playing out in your external world. In other words, what you avoid facing inside starts repeating itself outside until you finally stop and go, wait, is this trying to tell me something? It could be a string of relationships with the same unhealthy pattern, a recurring illness, or a phrase you hear from 3 different people in the same week. None of that is random. It's all part of the mystery of coincidences pulling you toward evolution. Most people only start noticing synchronicities when they're in crisis, feeling lost, or going through a major shift. And that's not a coincidence either. During those times, the ego is weakened and the soul gets louder. Jung used to say that when your soul's purpose clashes with your ego's desires, the universe finds creative, often symbolic, ways to guide you back to your center. That job you lost, the breakup you didn't see coming, the trip that got cancelled. might seem like bad luck. But look closer. They often connect to a deeper inner calling. A spiritual path isn't about escaping pain. It's about learning what the pain is here to teach you. These synchronicities, they're actually cosmic shortcuts. Messages from the universe saying, you're not alone, keep going. And once you get that, you stop resisting and start cooperating. The question shifts from why is this happening to me to what is this happening for? And that shift, it changes everything. Start by asking yourself, what is this pattern trying to teach me? If you're ready to go even deeper, check out The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle or The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. Both are amazing guides for anyone wanting to understand the universe's signs in a grounded, practical way. But before diving into those books, it's worth asking, who really was Carl Jung? The man who exposed the spiritual backstage of the psyche long before psychology dared to tell the whole story. Carl Jung was way more than just a guy with a couch. While the world of psychology tried to keep both feet firmly planted in logic and reason, he was walking invisible paths, exploring symbols, archetypes, alchemy, and even ancient oracles like the I Ching. But he did it quietly, almost like a spiritual seeker in a scientist's clothing. Most people don't know this, but Jung took astrology seriously. He truly believed that certain life events were guided by cosmic forces, what he called synchronicities. And this wasn't bar talk or casual curiosity. He documented them, studied them, compared patterns, took notes. To him, these spiritual coincidences were the unconscious speaking through the outside world. In other words, nothing is random, and he knew it over 100 years ago. In his writings, you'll find references to tarot, Kabbalah, Egyptian mythology, even numerology. Jung didn't see these symbolic systems as mere human inventions, but as tools to decode the soul. His study of alchemy, for example, wasn't about turning lead into gold, but about spiritual gold. A powerful metaphor for inner transformation. When someone was diving deep into self-discovery, Jung saw it as an alchemical journey. And here's the wild part. He actually used these ideas in therapy, sometimes subtly, sometimes directly. And maybe that's why so many of his patients experienced things that went way beyond logic. The mystery of coincidences often showed up like an energetic signature of those sessions. If Jung were alive today, chances are he'd be cancelled by some academics and worshipped by spiritual seekers. He was one of the few who could blend science and spirituality without losing credibility. Why? Because he spoke with depth, but also with humility. His ideas are still alive for one simple reason: they feel true, not just in your head, but in your heart. And here's the really intriguing part. Maybe you're already going through a string of synchronicities right now, and you just haven't had that click yet. Maybe it's this video, maybe it's this moment. What if everything you're going through, the pain, the losses, the chance meetings, is the universe trying to wake you up to something bigger? So now tell me, after all this, do you still think what happened in your life was just a coincidence? Or has it finally clicked that nothing is by chance? The synchronicities Carl Jung studied so deeply are happening all the time. And maybe all you need is to change your lens to finally see what's been there all along. How many signs have you ignored because you were stuck on autopilot? How many answers have already shown up, but you didn't even notice they were answers? Maybe, just maybe, the universe is screaming, and you're hearing it in silence. So here's the real question. What are you going to do with all this? If something inside you lit up while watching this video, then the first step is already done. But spiritual awakening doesn't end here. Actually, this is just the beginning, and it only continues if you're willing to take action. Start writing down your coincidences. Observe the patterns. Question what seems obvious. And if you're going to doubt anything, doubt the idea that all of this is random. Now tell me in the comments, what's the most powerful synchronicity you've ever experienced? I'll be reading, replying, and who knows, maybe even sharing your story in a future video. Oh, and of course, if this message hit you, if it stirred something in you, go ahead and subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Around here, we dive deep into spirituality, vibrational energy, personal growth, and the mysteries science still can't quite explain. Because if you made it this far, I know one thing for sure, it wasn't by accident.